TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zimet, your State Farm Insurance agent in DeKalb. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zimet and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. Don't forget Kids Eat for Free on Thursday. For delivery or pickup, go to pizzavilla.com or call 815-758-8116. Elder Care Services of DeKalb. Safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay in home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. My Insurance Guy in Sycamore covers Medicare to auto care and everything in between. Stop by at 204 South Main Street in Sycamore. Call 815-899-0950 or online at myinsuranceguy.com. Welcome into TD Ryan Unleashed, podcast number 67. Honored to have privilege with us, the new superintendent of the Sycamore School System, Dr. Campbell. Dr. Campbell, how are you doing this morning?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. It took us a little work to get you to here, and we're so excited that you're here. You know, back on January 29th, there was an article in the Daily Chronicle. Sycamore School District 427 will have a new superintendent, unanimous school board decision. Then they talked about you working at the Oswego School System. The thing I was really impressed by, Dr. Campbell, is it said here in the paper, Campbell shook hands with every member of the school board and staff working at the meeting. Tell me about that. Why did you do that? I thought that was so impressive that you did that.
So I'm all about relationships and making connections with everyone that works in our school district and even volunteers. You know, our board members are volunteers and represent our community. And that was a great opportunity for me to connect with all of them and also thank them for the opportunity that I have in being in a great community.
That's great. And then you also referred to, I look forward to future conversations. Now, you've been in the office now about 60 days, 60 very busy days. Yes. Have you had some conversations? Have you been able to have some conversations?
Yes, absolutely. So not only have I met with our chief of police and fire, all the way to all of our principals and teachers and parent-teacher organization presidents and everyone in between, even Rotary.
Are your hands blistered from all the handshake?
No, it's been great. I even had a chance today. Our Life School program had a celebration picnic to end the year and had a chance to meet with some parents that I hadn't connected with yet and heard about their story and all of their successes for their children in the school district. So it's been wonderful meeting with everyone and even our students too. You know, one of the schools I visited very early on, the students were dressed up as their future selves.
Oh, really?
And one little girl was dressed up as a future veterinarian in the hallway. And so we were chatting for a few minutes, and she was just sharing about what she wanted to be when she grew up. And those moments are so important to me, right? Just to get to know people and learn their story and how I can continue to take what they're sharing with me as we continue to lead well and support our students. And it's been really amazing. Fast and furious, busy 60 days.
Well, in this computer age, it's so nice to hear you value that human connection like that. And we were just talking off the air about the school superintendent of DeKalb. We just had Billy on here on our podcast, and you told me you guys meet once a month. I didn't realize that.
Yes, we do. We just started that. We are actually intentionally meeting at different coffee shops, too, in our different towns. So he got to come over to Sycamore and meet at Starbucks, and it was definitely interesting because people know who he is, and they know who I am, and they're like, what's going on over there, you know? But it's great for collaboration, you know, him being new as well, you know, his vision and his ideas for DeKalb. We are school districts side by side. We're neighbors, and we share ideas with one another, and we have future ideas, too, of touring our schools so we can get more of a window of, you know, what each other are experiencing on a daily basis.
Now, when we think about school districts in the state of Illinois, let's say, are they very similar? In other words, you're coming from Oswego. Was there huge differences as you come over here to Sycamore? Or obviously size, but other than that?
So I actually said that in my interview that what drew me to Sycamore is very similar to Oswego. It's a small town, but also a big town at the same time, and very similar farming as well as, you know, the suburb areas that you have around the schools. DeKalb is different, right, than Sycamore, and that's how it is in all of Illinois, right? There are some differences and similarities. We have a lot of similarities. A lot of our staff grew up in DeKalb or went to NIU, so they're very familiar with that community. And I also joke, too, you know, in the district that I work in, there's probably about 5 superintendents who live in Sycamore. They send their kids to our schools, but they're superintendents other places.
Wow.
You know, they also are drawn to the community of Sycamore and the small town feel and the excellent schools and, you know, the personalized learning that we're able to provide for our kids.
Now, I know you want to thank Nick Reineff, if I'm saying his name right, of course, the interim superintendent, and I'm sure he helped you with that smooth transition.
He did. He was incredible. We met so many times prior to me coming on March 1st. He was able to share with me all the ins and outs, the traditions. I've heard so much about Pumpkin Fest. I cannot wait to experience it. And he's been able to share, moments like that are important to our community, as well as, just different things that he was working on and wanting to make sure I knew what that was so that I could continue to partner with and move that forward.
Oh, very good. I want to. If you dipped your toe in the Kishwaukee River, I don't know if you heard that one. If you dip your toe in the Kishwaukee River,
I
you
have
always
not.
come back. You always come back to DeKalb. So,
Okay.
So if you do that, you're here for the duration.
Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind. I love that.
I wanted to tell you. You said you started as an English teacher. I just interviewed a young lady from Sandwich. She's in 8th grade. She's a 2-time DeKalb County Spelling Bee champion, and she just was
Wow.
down at the Scripps Spelling Bee in Washington. Just an amazing young lady. Her parents had her reading Steinbeck and Tolstoy at the age of 8.
Oh my goodness.
Because of
that's
the
incredible.
COVID. She was forced to be home. Mom had all these classic books at home, but
Yeah.
the COVID, still a lot of kids that went through the COVID, and again, a little years taken from their life. But in this case, she turned it into a positive. And what do you think about that? That the fact that she was able, and it was old school. Mom had her memorize 4,000 words, how to spell them, and really interesting to see how the COVID was a positive in her life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. For many of our students, they flourished during that time. That ability to kind of like settle into what their interests are. Many students found hobbies and things that they never would have maybe been interested in before, given, the fast pace of school. A lot of students too, some of our students, it was a challenge. It was hard. It's very isolating. A time as we can all remember. I feel like 8 years passed in the time COVID era, right? And
well, we all learn differently, right? So
we all learn differently, and so that's incredible to hear that from her experience. She then became a teacher as a result, and that's what's awesome, about students is that they can find a passion early on, and then that turns into a potential career for their future.
Yeah. I found it interesting. She was telling us how when she got up there, how do you keep from being nervous? And she said she visualized somebody writing the word on the ceiling. She looked up at the ceiling and she actually saw a hand writing the word. I thought that was fascinating. That's how she remembered how to spell the word. So,
I love that.
Yeah, sure. Bridget Reed is her name. She's a really impressive young lady. But now tell us about you as a young student. Were you a good student? Were you and the spelling bee? I was always the first one that had to sit down. How about you? Were you good at the spelling bee?
Spelling bee was not my jam. However, I was an avid reader to the point my mom and I were talking about this other day that she would be like, you cannot take your book with you to the grocery store or to church or the car. Like you need to connect with us.
Not to interrupt you, but I got to tell you a story about Bridget. Bridget, the only problem she had with school was that the math teacher called her parents into the school, and apparently Bridget was lifting up her desk and reading a book during math class. Well,
I can relate to, I mean, when you love
like
reading, you love reading. And that's what inspired me to be an English teacher. Eventually, I could inspire that level of reading to my students.
Did someone bring that level of reading out for you, or was it just there?
No, I really loved, I had a very active imagination. I loved escaping into a different world and, being able, and that turned into also learning too. Like I love to learn. That's what inspired me to get my doctorate very quickly. I went through school, was in school from kindergarten all the way through my doctorate. I took 1 year off.
Wow.
I was in school pretty much that entire duration, all the way through my doctorate, because I love, learning new things and applying that to whatever experiences I have. And I'm still learning to this day.
Was there a teacher that made a difference? Somebody who really said, I want to be like that person.
Yeah, definitely. My high school English teacher.
Okay.
She was really inspirational to me and really cared about
What was
us
her
as
name?
students. Her name is Miriam O'Connor.
Okay.
She's actually a podcaster too now. So
is that right?
shout out to her if she's listening to this. I'll just send her the link to it
Please do.
when we're done. But she was so inspirational. She really encouraged us to follow our interests and passions, but also cared about us as kids and really developed relationships, listened, spent time after school, connecting with us. And she's one of those people that, knows everyone and still maintains that relationship with her students even years later.
Were you ever frustrated later years, like in 8th grade or even high school, that I could do this better? We could definitely do this better. If I was in charge, I could do this better. Were you thinking that way then?
No, not then.
Okay.
I had a really great school experience. Really loved, like I said, learning and really was a sponge and continued.
And sports? Did we do sports at all?
I did. I played high school and college basketball. So I was an athlete in high school. I was also in track and field just to stay up with conditioning.
Okay.
And that's what drew me to Illinois, actually, was to play college basketball. And my aunt and uncle lived here. And fun fact, I have to tell you this. So growing up, my uncle played professional football. And I would tell kids when I was growing up, like, oh, my uncle plays for the Bears. And kids would be like, yeah, so? I come to college here and I said, my uncle played for the Bears. And they're just dying. They're like, who is your uncle? And I tell them, and they're like, from the 80s? His name's Jim Covert.
Oh, Jimbo, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So they were just like, and I'm like, I never got this reaction as a child. Whenever it was the Browns or Pittsburgh Steelers growing
Yeah,
up.
the
So.
85 Bears, we even know all the linemen, even Jimbo Covert
Oh, yeah.
back in the day. Well,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a neat story. That's
Yeah.
neat. And now, so you started teaching English. I see here now.
Yes.
She began her career as an English teacher at Community High School, District 117. Tell us about that first day. Were you nervous? And my mom taught, and my dad taught, and my brothers taught too.
Yeah.
And we always talk about that first day. You got to kind of set it to tone kind of hard. My mom always said you can always be nicer later, but if they think they can walk over you early, then you're in trouble. What was your mindset when that first day?
Well, I have to tell you, I student taught at Stevenson High School, so I taught at a very rigorous high school environment, and so that really prepared me for my first day. I had really great mentors at that time. But walking in, I was really excited to have that opportunity to inspire kids and help them develop to their full potential. I remember I was 21 and I taught juniors and seniors my entire time, 9 years of teaching.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
My students at
Mom taught
first year.
third grade. She said they were big enough to understand what you're
Yes.
doing, but small enough to be afraid of you.
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
So,
Well, you definitely have to have a presence, right? I'm sure
Right.
your mom told you that.
Sure.
You definitely have to have that confidence, and I did. And my students all year, that senior class, my first class, were guessing how old I was. They guessed anywhere from, again, I was 21, anywhere from 15 to 43. And then at the end of the year, when I told them I was 22, they were like fell out of their chairs. They couldn't believe it. I'm like, see, this is what happens. You graduate high school, you go to college, and you get a job. And so, it was a great year, a great first year. And I'm still connected with some of my former students.
That's
today.
wonderful. Now, I see you went to Concordia University of Chicago. A lot of people would like to be impressed with that. Northeastern University as well.
Yeah.
Why do you put such importance on higher education? Why do you think that's an important thing?
Yeah, I really do believe that there's a lot of power in learning and what you can use from not only research, but people that have been in the field and can really share with you their wisdom and how that can help, you grow in your craft. My bachelor's is in secondary education, English as a double major. And again, totally could do it, right? Love reading. It was awesome. And then went into getting my master's in special education. That was I taught for 1 year and wasn't in school, and then I went into the NEIU program for Master's in Special Education, realizing that I had more to learn. My
I was going to say, you're
students were
still
different.
gleaning stuff even after all you've learned before that.
Yeah. I still, recognize there's different learning needs in my classroom, and recognizing I needed even more strategies and more ways to connect with my students. So I went and got my master's in special ed, and then I went on to master's in educational leadership, and then went into my doctorate.
And we'll go back to a little technical difficulties. We're talking to Dr. Campbell about taking over the school superintendent position just 2 months ago. We're recording this in June. And something I noticed, Dr. Campbell, was in the release, district officials said that they chose Campbell because of her approach to education and leadership centered on students. Now, not to be facetious there, but of course it should be on students. But also explain that when you say education and leadership centered on the students. What does that mean?
Students are always our why, right? Like we have to always remember our learners, their experience in the classroom, knowing our students come from a variety of backgrounds, learning abilities like I talked about. Every decision we make, we need to always keep that in mind. And also, how do we elevate our student voices and create those opportunities where they too can feel empowered to share about their learning experiences and what they would like to see differently. So this past year already at Sycamore, I say year, the last couple of months, let me rephrase, our middle school had a career day, and I had an opportunity to explain my journey into superintendency and leadership, and really had a chance to answer their questions, but also let them know, like, as your superintendent. And, for kids, they don't really know what that means. So I'm like, okay, another way of looking at it is I make decisions like snow days. And they're like, okay, got you. Yeah, understand.
I'm sure that registered with them.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. And then I said to them, do you have ideas of what you would like to see be different for you in your student experience? Please let me know. I gave them my email. And before I even left the building, I had several kids email me about hand towels in the bathroom and wanted to make sure that I heard their perspective and was able to connect them with their principal, and we were able to make that their ideas or what their frustration points were.
Wow, how
get
exciting
addressed
for them to see that happen then.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's who I am as a leader, right? We want to create those opportunities where student voice is elevated.
Now, let me ask some general question as an old guy. I was going to mention with the books, all 6 of my grandkids read Harry Potter.
Yes.
And they didn't have to. That was the part that really kills me.
Yes.
So it's one when kids get inspired to read even when they don't have to. Huh?
I know. Yeah, it's a great series. My oldest child, he's going to be a junior next year. I remember in 4th grade when he got interested, he used to carry 2 books at a time, the one that he was reading and the one that he wanted to read next in the series, because that book series is really captivating to even students that are like not that interested in
That's
in
fantastic.
reading.
Now, some general questions from an old person. One is Chromebooks. Now, I know we had the Chromebooks introduced a few years ago, and cell phones in the school. What type of Chromebooks now? Is that a positive thing? Do you see any downside, Dr. Campbell, to the Chromebooks?
Yeah, so we have done a lot in Sycamore, and I would say in education in general, about how we can use technology to, we call it support pedagogy. How does that
Support what now? You're using
pedagogy?
What
So
does
how
that
does
mean?
that support learning?
Okay.
And we oftentimes in education think about technology as only being electronic, but technology is even like paper. It's even a pencil. It's even having access to a book, right? Whether it's electronic or paper. And so it's really not looking at, Chromebooks as something that is something extra. It's another piece of technology. How does that enhance the learning experience for our students? And we had this past year in Sycamore really an initiative on going a step further, AI in education. And what does that mean? Our director of instructional technology really did a nice job in bringing people together to develop an AI framework, and then had these monthly videos about AI in practice. So essentially, it's taking technology or things like Chromebooks, and how does that help revolutionize learning in the classroom?
Okay.
And she gave different strategies,
Little
different
baby
ideas.
steps, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then that led to the committee's recommendation for how a technology platform in the future can be used to differentiate or personalized learning for our students, and how teachers can have access to that to be able to create really engaging student interest type lessons, but based on the learning needs of their students. So we really want to use that technology as a tool to help support the instruction in the classroom. We're not overly reliant. We're using it as like a teammate in the classroom to be able to help support the work that we need to do with our
Very good.
students.
Now, I wanted to mention also because I bring that up because the cell phones in the school. I know they're talking about banning cell phones in schools, and I wonder what your thoughts are on that. And is that a good idea?
Yeah, so our high school has already taken steps on that, and they've addressed that early on at the beginning of the year. All throughout the school, they have, we call them like, I don't know if they're called cubbies or pockets, but they're like cell phone places where kids can put their cell phones away so
Okay.
they can focus on learning. And I would say we were a step ahead, right? We know
Yes.
that it just got, I think, through the Senate, and Governor Pritzker just said it's about to come to law about cell phones being restricted in schools. And I think that's just an example, just like Chromebooks, right? Like we want kids to be focused on learning and engaging with their peers, learning how to communicate, collaborate, all of those skills that we in our district call Portrait of a Spartan. Those skills we want kids to develop by the time they leave, right? We want that to be front and center. And then when does technology come into play? When does it support it? And, we've already taken a stance that for cell phones, it's really put away when kids need it. After school, before school is when they'll get it. And they can focus on all those other areas.
That's fantastic. That's a great answer, by the way, too. And, I bring this up, too, also because I'm glad you mentioned the pen and the paper because my wife and I watch a show called The Sunday Morning Show, and Steve Hartman does these little feel-good segments. And one of them was on a World War II veteran. I get verklempt thinking about it because he never learned to read. He dropped out of high school to join the war, and his wife helped him fake it all the way through his life. And 86, his wife passed away. And here he is by himself, doesn't know how to read. So he tried various modern methods to read. And one lady who would not give up on him had flashcards. And she brought flashcards to him. And he picked up on the flashcards and he read George Washington's first grade biography. It said it was the proudest book he ever read. Well, the only book he ever read. But what about old school methods? I know my mom was reluctant.
Yeah.
She taught in Chicago for 35 years. And
Yeah.
when they were introducing new stuff, she kind of liked to stick to her old method. How do you avoid the teachers wanting to stay with the old ways? And is the old way still somewhat good in some ways?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we as a district have really done a lot of professional learning around something called the science of reading. And how do we break apart what does it mean to teach someone how to read? How do you go to the basics? And it's actually the way that we probably were taught in school how to read, focusing on phonics and phonemic awareness and how to break apart words and syllables. And how do we intentionally teach that to our youngest learners so that skill can be built on? And then you get into sight words and then decoding, and then you start to string sentences together, and then you're doing that with writing. And really, we've taken that even a step further, and not only providing that professional learning for all of our teachers across the entire system, K-12 or preschool through grade 12, but we also were looking at a resource. What are the resources out there that can support this learning our teachers are embarking on this year to help bring that to life? And so we recently, the board approved an ELA resource for K-5 as well as 6-12. And the teachers piloted it throughout the year, gave us good feedback. So again, they took that learning and applied it to the resource that they were seeing if that worked. And it is seeming like it's going to be a great opportunity for our teachers to use in the classroom
Oh, that's
to bring it
fantastic.
to life.
I always thought about, you hear you talking about Martin Luther King's speech at the Washington Capitol. You can bring that up, right? And boom, you can watch it and listen to it just like that.
That's right.
So impressed by that. We're talking to Dr. Campbell, the new superintendent of Sycamore School System. Now, this is something from DeKalb, but I wonder how this might affect Sycamore. DeKalb Elementary School adopted with a $5,000 donation from the new Burlington store. I don't know if you know about this, Dr. Campbell, but is that something in Sycamore we might see down the line?
I'm not familiar with what is it?
Okay, the Burlington store kind of adopted a classroom in a Burlington school there.
Yeah.
And kind of made a $5,000 donation. And, I want to talk to you a little bit later about you were speaking about the production locally here at the business park and how that would affect the schools and the money coming in. And so it's very much exciting that you might have a sponsor like that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know we have really amazing community sponsors within Sycamore. Our Chamber of Commerce is incredible, and the things that they know about our school and what skills, like I mentioned, Portrait of a Spartan, they're very aware of that, and they were instrumental in writing a grant for our middle school to be able to partner with our chamber to provide really hands-on instructional lessons to prepare our kids for the future. All the way to Rotary. Rotary honors a student a month from our high school, and I get a chance to be there. I'm a member of Rotary. There's many Rotaries in Sycamore, but and a chance for they are able to donate money, and the student picks a charity for them to actually give it back to. But Rotary also does things by coming into our schools for several months and reads to our students. And sometimes support looks different, right? Sometimes it actually is tangible resources. Sometimes it's coming alongside of us and supporting literacy, like people volunteering their time to read to kids. And sometimes it's thinking about partnerships and dreaming for the future that we haven't even created yet for our kids.
That's great. Very well put. Now, I found this article very interesting. It says, how much does it cost to replace a teacher? And they arrive at the number $12,000. But let me explain how they got that number. Statewide school districts retain about 89.5% of teachers, with some districts as low as 58%. But when it comes to retain, obviously it's important. I have this somewhere where they have, I don't know how they got the $12,000, but obviously, Dr. Campbell, it's very important to keep our teachers, right? And tell us about that. Do you have a mindset with that? Is there a way we're going to keep these great teachers that we have here in Sycamore?
Yeah, so we have a phrase: we want to recruit, retain, and reward. We want the best teachers for our students.
Okay.
How do we retain them? What does that look like? And how do we reward them for their time here? Right? What does that look like? On a monetary level, but also that intangible space, right? Like how do we help them feel valued and a part of our community? And we have a whole HR strategy that Nick, who you mentioned earlier, helped create, and how we can do that. And we keep coming up with different ideas, and also to celebrate even in that recruit, retain, reward in other areas that are hard to fill positions, like our buildings and grounds department. We were talking just recently about some different strategies and how we can share out what it means to support our schools, and in the non-traditional sense, right? People don't necessarily think about someone who's mowing our lawns as being a teacher, or someone that's a bus driver as a teacher, right? Like we view those spaces, any position that is within our school district, as a teacher of, right? They're supporting our initiative and helping support our kids overall.
Well, on my Steve Hartman show, I tell you about, there was a custodian who was always giving advice to the kids. After 40 years, they bought him a car.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was so neat, though, because like you said, here's an influence that people weren't even counting on, and yet these kids would come to him with his problems all the time.
Yes, yeah, and we have many examples like that within our district. We even had one head custodian at one of our elementary schools get recognized as DeKalb Educator of the Year in her work in her elementary school, and she is just a ray of sunshine. Saw her even today. She had a cart full of treats and snacks for the kids as they were crossing over from the neighborhood into the school this morning, and that's what we're about.
Now, we have a chance to talk to both the Sycamore and the DeKalb police chiefs here, and we talked about school resource officers and how important they are, not only obviously for the safety of our children, but what we're just talking about now with the relationships that they develop and how that may affect them later on in their lives, how they look at police officers. And what are your thoughts on school resource officers?
Yeah, so exactly like you said, they're a resource, and relationships is key. We have one former resource officer in Sycamore. She's now, I think, a sergeant, and she has a therapy dog. And her impact on our schools when she was an SRO.
Who is that now? Can we get an intro?
Laura. Who is it? Caitlin Peterson.
Okay.
Caitlin Peterson. And she's still remembered to this day. Students talk about her, teachers, leaders, people at the district office. Everyone knows her. And we actually just did a drill recently. And I'm like, is she here? Where is she? I must meet her, right? Because she's made such a positive impact on our community. And that is even true to this day. Our current resource officers, they know our students. And we are constantly thinking about how we can continue to partner with our first responders. Lauren and I were talking, she's my director of communications. She's like off mic right now, about strategies for the future of doing something like High Five Fridays, where we invite our first responders with us. And as kids are coming into school, they join with us and we give kids high fives. And, really we want our students to view our first responders as helpers, and that it really is their role. And we're so grateful for their partnership.
Now, back when I was at the radio station, we had Sycamore seniors come in and high school students, and we're going to places that need help, and they were finding out exactly the kind of help they needed. Do you have relationships with the businesses in the Sycamore that here's the type of person we're looking for, and the kids can train for that, right?
Yeah, so we are continuing that conversation with our business partners. We have a business partner that's very close by called Sauter Food Company, and
They're wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And she's actually, her name's Ashley. She's a parent of a middle school student and former, I think our older son, she's a couple of kids, were Sycamore high school students. And she was at our career fair that I was mentioning, our Science Olympiad experience that we have annually. And I had a chance to meet her son, who has created all these 3D objects through a 3D printer that actually are mobile and can move things. And then she had her own table to talk about her company and different career opportunities for kids. And she's a great partner, right? Like we constantly think about how we can continue to do that to give kids opportunities for their future careers.
It's actually the Suter Company, and they do Feed My Starving Children every year. And they have thousands of volunteers that people come and feed. And it's such a wonderful thing to do every year. So,
it is.
It's a wonderful company. That's great.
I agree.
And finally, just to wrap things up, this was back on May 17th. New Sycamore School Administrator, Superintendent proposes strategic reorganizations. Now, we don't want to get into all the detail with this, but you've been out, you've been speaking. You spoke when there's a possibility of a $6.5 million project coming to Sycamore. You were speaking then. What did you speak of then, Dr. Campbell, when you were talking about that?
So we are currently doing a facility management review with an outside company where they're looking at all of the age and life of our buildings and providing us with an update about what that looks like for our future. And as you know, if you've been around Sycamore for a while, we have some buildings that were built in the 60s all the way to the 2000s. And
I know the new school administration, the old school administration building is now going to be an apartment. That's so neat that they're able to keep that old building around.
I know. Yeah. So we have some opportunities for the future to support, just the continued age and maintenance of our buildings. Our desire is to continue to, I keep saying, systems to silos, right? We want to be a system that's dependent on the system, right? Where we're not person dependent, but we also need individuals that can help us get there and how we can operationalize the information we're gathering, and then how do we make that a reality, and what does that look like?
And then classroom sizes, is there an ideal? Obviously, one-on-one would be perfect, but what's a realistic goal for class sizes?
I don't know if there's necessarily like a realistic goal, because you have to look at the needs of the students and like the classroom. And, we continue to talk about that within our school district and what that looks like. Some schools have specific programs that are designed for specific learning abilities of our students, and some schools do not, right? And so it varies depending on the need.
And we've had Mike DeVito Jr. here on the podcast when they were recruiting to get the superintendent. Yeah. What is the relationship now with the superintendent and the school board, and what do you want it to be, I should say?
Oh, it's incredible. We have a great relationship. We talk often. I always say we're a team of 8. And we have constant communication. Really, I'm part of the team, and then I'm also part of many other teams, right, within the district. And it's been great. We had an opportunity to do, I called it flattening the organization. So when the board was reviewing their goals for this coming year, we partnered with an organization called Illinois Association of School Boards. They work primarily with school boards in providing professional development, but also facilitate moments like board goal setting. And we invited students, teachers, community members, board members, leaders, district and building level. And we had an opportunity to review our goals from the previous year and then look at what our goals could be for the future. And it was great because, again, what I talked about earlier in creating students at the center, we had students there part of that conversation, dialoguing with board members and teachers and leaders. And that was really powerful because we came up with these goals of where we're going for the future together. And that's a great example of what great teams do, right? We do the work together, and we're modeling that here, and now we're modeling that in other spaces.
I love that team of 8. I like that.
Yeah.
But now, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this. So you're talking about 5 new administrative positions. Would this overlap? In other words, are we replacing something, or are these brand new positions that we're talking about?
Well, it depends on the position. So, our special education administrator position prior to that was a teacher on special assignment. So essentially what that means is a teacher in our district And she's doesn't have a classroom, but she's providing support across our district. So that is transitioning into an administrative role for this coming year. We had a director of learning and teaching K-12 that is moving on to another position in the future. And so we had a chance to reimagine what does that look like in supporting teaching and learning,
Okay.
and what are the needs already emerging from our system, and the needs were emerging. We need more support. And what does that look like? And so that's where that creation of the director of learning and teaching came, K-5, as well as that chief academic officer, someone that can help bring all of these different silo departments together in a more cohesive manner. So we're working as a system to support student learning. And then the chief operating officer, as I mentioned earlier, with our facilities management review and where we're going in the future, having someone that can be that strategy and help make all that connection with all the things that we have. I call on the ops side of the house and the ed side of the house. How can they help make those connections across the system, but also do it in a way that's very thoughtful, honoring taxpayer dollars, and really being, very fiscally responsible with our resources.
Now, the board still has to vote on this, right? These are just proposals that you have after your 60 days?
Nope. So we talked about what they are. The board is given the green light to move forward.
Okay.
The positions are going to be brought to, or I'm making recommendations for these positions in our June board meeting.
Oh, well, great. Well,
Yeah.
when the radio station, we used to play the song Getting to Know You, Getting to Know All About, because we just want to know where you were coming from and what this position means to you. And can you tell us a little about your family? What are your family excited to be here in Sycamore? Are they?
Yeah, they are. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is going to be a junior next year. My middle child is going to be a sophomore, and my youngest is going to be in 3rd grade.
Okay.
And they only know me as mom. And I try to explain what I do, and they're like, I don't know. You teach kids? Like, that's what my incoming third grader thinks. He's always like, tell the kids to read this book. I'm like, okay, buddy. When I get in a classroom to read the book, I'll make sure to pick that as the title.
I tell you, that was my mom. She taught 3rd grade her whole 30 years in Chicago because she said it was the perfect age, perfect child age.
It is. It's a great age. They're still innocent and they want to be around mom, and like hang out. And
Now, nature versus nurture, or do any of the girls, do they want to be teachers? Anybody want to be teachers in the family?
Well, my son, he wants to be a doctor, and
good
he's
for
wanted
him.
to be a doctor for a long time. My daughter wants to either be a social worker or a lawyer. So
Okay.
again, my kids are picking fields of like helping people, right? Which makes my heart warm.
It
And then
should.
my 3rd grader wants to be a police officer. And anytime we see a police officer, he always walks up and shakes his hand and says, I want to be a police officer when I grow up. So it's super cute.
Well, we hope we can have you back again real soon. We appreciate your time. We know just 60 days on the job. People are going to hear this in July. And of course, you got, people say, oh, they're off the whole summer, right? But obviously,
Also.
that is not the case here. What do you hope to accomplish before the beginning of the next school year? Anything in particular, or just in general, just be on the same page as everybody else?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I had the opportunity to start before July 1. Most superintendents start July 1. And so I've had a couple months under my belt to be able to continue our planning forward. We're talking a lot about those board goals I mentioned earlier. How can we operationalize that in what we call in school strategic planning? So we'll be starting that process, early fall, involving our community again. What I said before, flattening organization, get all those perspectives in, right? Like how can we do what we do, and what is your perspective and how we can do it? All the way to thinking about ways we can celebrate kids. My director of comms, Lauren, and I were talking again about how we like to focus on students monthly and schools, and having different ways we can celebrate them even throughout the weeks, starting something called What's Good in 427, where I could go around and ask kids, not to your level of podcasting, because you're pro
Well,
here.
I saw you walking with somebody talking on a was that on Facebook? You were walking and talking with somebody?
Oh, yeah, with Nick. Yeah. So
Okay.
Nick did that while he was here as the interim soup, and that was a good transition where he was interviewing me. And then we're going to take that same idea where in the future I'll be talking to students and staff and community members, but a little spin on it.
Go easy on the podcasting. All right. We don't,
Yeah, no, it's probably more video based, and being able to tell the story, right, of our district and all the good things.
And before we let you go, I have to mention the lady who's sitting behind me. Our third party here in the studio is Lauren, who she used to work at the Sycamore School District, and we'd always set up interviews about the plays, right? The plays that you were always
Yes.
helping produce there. But brag on this lady a little bit here, how she's been helpful in getting this couple of months under your belt here.
Oh man, she's my right hand. We talk all the time, and I'm like, Lauren, I have another idea. She's like, me too. And we really are, committed to how can we elevate, what's good happening in our schools with our students at the center. It's a mission and vision Lauren has as well. So she has a great team. They have high production quality of the things that they produce. I was telling her the other day, I have friends who are not in education, don't live here, that have contacted me. They're like, I really know what's going on in Sycamore. I'm like, well, that's all Lauren and her team. They're doing a great job telling the story.
Well, keep up the great work. It's so exciting now that I was one of those kids that had the project due and you told mom the night before and hit the report card. But now with the communications, right, parents can get as involved as they want to, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we have a platform called ParentSquare that allows us to communicate with our parents very quickly via text, and the parents can communicate right back to the school too. They don't even have to jump on email. And I know a lot of our parents have shared with me, even my time here, how much they value that, as well as our principals and our teachers too.
That's so great. Again, Dr. Kristen Campbell has been our guest. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
you,
you.
Lauren, for making this happen. Thanks to my nephew, Michael Davis, for getting us on the air with this. And that's TD Ryan Unleashed podcast number 67.